Tonight, let me tell you a quiet story. A story about a woman who once lost everything she loved and who, slowly, gently, found her way home again. But before we begin, there is nothing for you to do now, nothing to carry. The day is over. You did enough today. You are allowed to rest. So let your shoulders fall away from your ears. Let your hands grow heavy and warm, and let your breath slow, all on its own, like a tide drawing back from a shore. This is the story of Ruth, though it begins, as many stories of loss do, long before her name was ever spoken. It begins in a small town called Bethlehem, which means, in the old tongue, house of bread. A gentle name, a place that was meant to be full. But in those days, the rains did not come. The fields turned pale. The bread grew scarce in the house of bread. And a family who lived there, a man, his wife, and their 2 young sons, made the long and difficult decision to leave. The man was named Elimelech. His wife was Naomi, a name that means pleasant or sweet. Remember her name gently. We will walk a long way with Naomi tonight. They gathered what little they had, and they traveled east, across dry hills toward a country called Moab, where they had heard there was still food. It is a strange and tender thing to leave the place you call home, hoping only to survive, to carry your children toward a land you do not know, because staying would mean watching them go hungry. And so they went, one slow step at a time, into a foreign country, under a wide and unfamiliar sky. For a while, all was well. Settle in now. There is nowhere you need to be. Just rest here and let the story carry you. In the land of Moab, the family found a place to live. A small home, fields that gave enough, water that did not fail. And for a time, they began again. The 2 boys grew tall in this foreign land. They learned its roads, its seasons, the sound of its evenings. Their names were Mahlon and Chilion, 2 young men growing up far from the town where they were born. But sorrow, as it so often does, came quietly, not with thunder, only with a stillness in the house one morning that had not been there before. Elimelech, Naomi's husband, the man who had carried them all this way, died. We will not linger here in the grief. Grief deserves gentleness, not detail. Only know this: Naomi, who had crossed a desert beside him, now stood in a foreign land without him. She still had her sons, and she held to them the way we hold to whatever light remains. In time, the 2 young men married. They took wives from among the women of Moab. One was named Orpah. The other was named Ruth. Ruth, at last, her name. A young woman of Moab who married into a grieving family from a far-off town, and who could not have known on her wedding day what the years would ask of her, or how gently she would answer. For about 10 years, they lived together. Naomi, her 2 sons, and the 2 young women who had joined their home. It was not the life Naomi had once imagined, but there was bread on the table. There was the sound of voices in the evening. There was something, enough like home, to rest in. Perhaps, in those quiet Moab years, Naomi began to believe that the worst was behind her, that the road had finally leveled out, that she could breathe. We will let her have that peace for just a little longer. But the quiet years came to an end. First one son, and then the other. Mahlon and Chilion were taken by illness, the way so many were in those days. And again, we will not dwell in the sorrow. We will only stand beside it a moment, the way you would sit with a friend who is hurting, not fixing, just there. 3 women remained now in that small house: Naomi and her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth. 3 women, and an empty doorway where the men used to come in from the fields. Naomi, whose name meant pleasant, sat in the long evenings and felt the weight of all she had lost. A husband, 2 sons, the future she had crossed a desert to protect. She had come to Moab to keep her family alive, and now she was the one still standing in a land that was never hers, among people whose gods were not her God. But there is a particular personal level that so much people who she had provide those complex in all. She is making the big time from what she want, and many he said they want. There is a particular zone without the way. There is a particular legs for some of the God. She still lost and sent in my heads. There is a particular white of Moab to her. The Moab Troom had the team field without 2 smellth as a word. She had careful around in some of a sitting among place. She was standing the other sons where. She had in the phone, and she released for one of the way from the problemy. She is the way without the way that she was stand that they will. She never want the Moab as the way from the kind. She hid look that in other moments from Moab she said that she want. She cries it. She came to Elam. There is a particular legs which she had standing. She still lost for some, and she drew the Moab to play something that she want. She respect that she was a breathed and she roughly being enough. There is a particular legs that anyone she broke that was truly disgust without the way. She proved themselves and said, there is a particular legs that in everybody wants more from me. She said that she true themselves sit not, she roughly to try to vel. She listened to the most property more town. She proved me was additioned. She had the truling that was standing in more than time. She still hoped to the most property more from fire. She did not trying to another fact that was nothing a more place. She dreft at the time. She said that she was entire love. She bruth within prove me. She made the truling with dead and said, there is a particular legs that in everybody wants to make more. She watched this strong both id. She is the time she was quickly. She stat this reels without time. She watched without previously and declaim it themselves. She said that she had not way to find moment. She truling was anything. She find that was once the 2 things that she said that she asked me. She watched the time with physical life she truly was loved. She still reflect without the way. She didn't she'd require my doubt, and to stand the most, she what we have maybe not. She never cracked the door with life. She had this from a color way. She said that she listened to the team was most more in the modent. She make the face was not the way. She wot was brie fair and stange most. She wot will requires still about me. She wot was trying to take cross the way and more. She still with any things, with mother and set and see. She plays the back them was den. There is a particular kind of loneliness in surviving, in being the one who remains. Perhaps you have known it. The quiet house, the place at the table that no longer needs setting. If you have, then you already understand something of Naomi's heart on those Moab nights. But hear this gently before you drift further. This is not a story that ends in an empty house. It only begins there. Naomi did not know it yet, but she was not as alone as she felt. Sitting near her, quiet, faithful, was a young woman named Ruth, who had already decided something in the silence of her own heart. We will hear what Ruth decided very soon. For now, let the house be still. Let the night be kind, and let yourself sink a little deeper into rest. Word travels slowly across deserts, but it travels. And one day, into that quiet house in Moab came news from far away. News from Bethlehem, the little town Naomi had left so many years before. The famine had ended. The rains had returned. The fields of the house of bread were golden again. Something stirred in Naomi when she heard it. Not joy exactly. She was too tired for joy. But a longing. A pull toward the place where she had once been young and whole and surrounded by those she loved. Home. Even when home has changed, even when the ones who made it home are gone, something in us still turns toward it, the way a plant turns toward the light. And so Naomi made her decision. She would go back. She would leave Moab, the land of her sorrow, and walk the long road home to Bethlehem. She gathered her few things. She set out from the place she had lived for so long. And her 2 daughters-in-law, Orpah and Ruth, rose and walked with her. The 3 of them on the road together, moving west, toward the hills, toward Judah, toward Bethlehem. For a while they walked in silence, the kind of silence that holds grief and hope at the same time. And then Naomi stopped. She turned to the 2 young women, these 2 who had married her sons, these 2 who had nothing now to bind them to her, no husbands, no children, only kindness. And what she said next came from a place of deep, weary love. She did not want them to lose their lives, following an old woman into an uncertain future. We will hear her words in just a moment. Rest now. The road is long, but you do not have to walk it. You only have to listen and breathe and let go. Naomi looked at Orpah and at Ruth, standing there on the dusty road, and she spoke to them with great tenderness. Go back, she said. Go back, each of you, to your mother's house. May the Lord be kind to you, as you have been kind to me, and to those we have lost. May He give you rest, each of you, in a new home someday. And then Naomi kissed them, and the 3 women stood together on that road, and they wept. It was not a bitter weeping. It was the weeping of love that does not want to say goodbye, but knows it must. The 2 young women shook their heads. No, they said, we will go with you, back to your people. But Naomi, in her weariness and her love, pressed them again. Why would you come with me? She asked softly. I have no more sons to give you. I am old. My road leads only into uncertainty. Turn back, my daughters. Go and live. My life has grown too heavy, and I would not lay that weight on you. There is such love in this consummate, such as in very much beautiful. There is such love in this truth, and they will be weight with your people. There is such love in this to you, and she would like to me the way that you can. There is no love and still much more money. Did you hear it? A woman with nothing left, still trying to give, still thinking of the young ones before herself. This is what grief can do in a tender heart. It does not always make us bitter. Sometimes it makes us gentle. It makes us let go of others so they might be free. And so the 3 of them stood there, and they wept again, under the wide sky, on the long road between 2 lands. And in that weeping, a choice was forming. One of these young women would turn back, and one would not. We will see very soon what each heart chose. For now, let your own heart grow quiet. There is nothing to decide tonight, only rest. After a long while, Orpah made her choice. And it was not a wrong choice. Let us be gentle with Orpah. She did the sensible thing, the thing Naomi had asked of her. She kissed her mother-in-law one last time, and she turned, and she walked back toward Moab, toward her own people. toward a chance at a new life. We do not blame her. She loved Naomi. And love sometimes looks like staying, and sometimes looks like going home. So Orpah went, and the road grew quieter still. Now there were two, Naomi and Ruth. Naomi turned to Ruth and pointed gently back down the road where Orpah had gone. "Look," she said softly, "your sister has gone back to her people and to her gods. Go with her, Ruth. Go back, while you still can." And Ruth, the young woman of Moab, the one who had every reason to leave and no reason the world would understand to stay, Ruth did not move. She stood very still on that road, and something rose in her, quiet and certain and unshakable. Not a feeling that would fade by morning, a decision. The kind a soul makes only once. She would not turn back. She would not let this grieving woman walk into an unknown country alone. She opened her mouth to speak, and the words she said have been remembered and treasured and whispered for thousands of years since. They are some of the most tender words ever spoken by one person to another. We will hear them at the start of our next part. For now, simply rest in this, that even on the loneliest road, someone can choose to stay, that you may be more accompanied than you feel. Let the road grow dark and soft. Let your breath slow, and let yourself drift toward the next quiet page of the story. On the road between Moab and Bethlehem, in the fading afternoon light, Ruth spoke to Naomi, and these are the words she said. "Listen gently. Do not ask me to leave you, or to turn back from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be laid to rest beside you." A young woman, with her whole life still ahead of her, chose an old woman's uncertain road, chose a foreign land, a foreign people, a foreign God, chose loyalty over comfort, love over safety. She asked for nothing in return. She did not know how the story would end. She only knew that she would not let Naomi walk alone. And when Naomi saw that Ruth was set on this, that her heart was fully decided, she stopped urging her to go. The two of them stood together a moment longer, and then they walked on, west, toward Bethlehem. Two women bound now not by blood, but by something deeper, by a promise made freely in the open air. There is a quiet truth here to carry with you toward sleep. Sometimes the people who hold us most faithfully are not the ones we expected, not the ones bound by duty, but the ones who simply choose to stay. And sometimes we are that person for someone else. Ruth could not have known, walking that dusty road, how her faithfulness would be answered. She walked only by love. One step, and then another, and the road carried them on through the hills toward the little town of Bread. Rest now. You do not have to know how your own road ends. You only have to take the next gentle breath, and then the next. At last, after many days of walking, Naomi and Ruth came to Bethlehem, the little town, the house of bread, the place Naomi had left a lifetime ago with a husband and two sons beside her. And now she returned, with neither. Only a young woman from Moab, walking faithfully at her side. The whole town stirred when they arrived. The women of Bethlehem looked at her, and they were not sure. "Can this be Naomi?" they asked one another softly. She had been gone so long. Sorrow had changed her face. The years had bent her shoulders. And Naomi, hearing them, answered from the depth of her grief. "Do not call me Naomi," she said. "Do not call me pleasant anymore. Call me Mara, for my life has grown bitter. I went away full, and I have come back empty." Empty. That was the word she used. And we must let her say it. We must not rush to comfort her too quickly. For sometimes the kindest thing is simply to let a grieving heart speak its truth without correction. To let it say, "I am empty. I went out full, and I came back with nothing." Naomi believed she had come home with nothing. But hear this softly before you drift. She had not come home empty. Standing right beside her, quiet, loyal, was Ruth, the one who would not leave. Naomi could not see it yet. Grief had narrowed her vision. But what looked like emptiness already held a seed of everything that was to come. This is often the way of sorrow. In the moment, it feels like an ending, and only later do we see it was a beginning, wearing the clothes of an ending. Let that be a gentle thought to rest on. The two women settled into Bethlehem, and the season was just beginning to turn. It was springtime when they arrived, the very beginning of the barley harvest. The fields around Bethlehem were turning gold. But Naomi and Ruth had no field of their own, no harvest, no one to provide for them. Two widows in a small town with very little. And so Ruth, the younger, the stronger, looked at their empty cupboard and quietly decided to do something about it. In those days, there was a kindness woven into the law of the land. When the workers harvested a field, they were not to gather every last stalk. The corners were left, the fallen grain was left, so that the poor, the widow, the stranger could come behind the reapers and gather what remained. It was called gleaning, a gentle provision built into the rhythm of the harvest so that no one would be forgotten. And so Ruth went to Naomi and said softly, "Let me go to the fields and gather grain behind anyone who will let me." And Naomi said, "Go, my daughter." There is something quietly beautiful here. Ruth did not wait to be rescued. She did not sit still inside the sorrow. She rose in the morning light and went out to do the humble, steady work of keeping the two of them alive. Sometimes faithfulness looks like a great vow on a dark road. And sometimes it looks like simply getting up in the morning and doing the next small thing for someone you love. Both are holy. Both are remembered. So Ruth tied her cloak and walked out into the golden morning toward the fields, not knowing whose field she would enter, not knowing that this quiet, ordinary day would change everything. We will follow her into that field very soon. For now, let the harvest sway gently in the warm wind of your mind. And rest. Just rest. The morning was warm, and the fields stretched out gold beneath the open sky. Ruth walked among them and came, as it happened, to a certain field. She did not choose it for any special reason. She only saw that there was room to glean, and so she began, following behind the reapers, gathering the grain they left behind. But the field she had entered belonged to a man named Boaz. Boaz was a good man, a man of standing in Bethlehem, and, as it happened, a relative of Naomi's late husband. Though Ruth did not know this yet, she only knew she was a stranger in a foreign town doing the quiet work of survival. Later that morning, Boaz himself came out to his field to greet the harvest. "The Lord be with you," he said to his workers, and they answered him warmly in return. He was the kind of man whose presence made people feel at ease. And then he noticed her, the young woman gleaning at the far edge of the field. "Whose is she?" he asked his foreman gently. And the foreman told him. "She is the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked very humbly if she could glean, and she has been working since early morning, resting only a little." Something softened in Boaz when he heard this. He had already heard the story of the foreign woman who had left her own land to care for a grieving widow. Word of Ruth's faithfulness had reached him before she ever did. And so he went to her. He walked across the field, and he spoke to her kindly. "My daughter," he said, "stay here in my field. Do not go anywhere else. Keep close to my workers. When you are thirsty, drink from the water they have drawn. No one here will trouble you." Ruth, a stranger, unused to such kindness, bowed low. We will hear what she said in just a moment. Rest now. Kindness is moving across this field toward you. Let it come. Ruth bowed low before Boaz and asked with gentle wonder, "Why are you so kind to me when I am only a foreigner?" And Boaz answered her with great warmth. "I have heard," he said, "all that you have done for Naomi since the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and the land of your birth and came to live among a people you did not know. May the Lord reward you for what you have done. May you find shelter under the wings of the God you have come to trust. May you find shelter under the wings of the one you have come to trust." Let those words rest over you like a blanket on a cool night. Ruth had not asked for reward. She had asked for nothing. She had only loved and stayed and worked. And here, unlooked for, kindness came back to her, like rain after a long, dry season. When the time came to eat, Boaz called her over. "Come," he said, "share the meal. Eat your fill." And Ruth sat among the harvesters, a foreign widow, given a place at the table. She ate until she was satisfied, and there was even some left over, which she set quietly aside to bring home to Naomi. Do you see her? Even in her own moment of being given to, she was thinking of the one she loved. And Boaz, when she rose to glean again, quietly told his workers to let some grain fall on purpose so she would have more to gather and never feel ashamed of gathering it. Kindness multiplying kindness, gentleness answering gentleness. This is how broken places slowly begin to heal, not all at once, but grain by grain, day by day, quietly. Ruth gleaned until evening, and then she gathered all she had and turned her steps toward home, toward Naomi, with her arms full. Let your own arms grow heavy and full now. The evening field is gold behind you, and you are walking home. When Ruth came home that evening, Naomi saw how much grain she had gathered, more than a long day of gleaning usually gives. And she saw the leftover food Ruth had saved from the midday meal and brought all the way home. "Where did you glean today?" Naomi asked. There was something new in her voice, a flicker, the first small movement of hope in a very long time. And Ruth told her, "The name of the man whose field I worked in today is Boaz." And when Naomi heard that name, something stirred in her tired heart. "Boaz," she said softly, and a slow light came into her eyes. "That man is a close relative of ours. He is one of those with the right and the responsibility to look after our family." For the first time since she had walked back into Bethlehem, Naomi, who had called herself Mara, who had called herself empty, felt the smallest turning, as if a door she thought was closed forever had not, after all, been locked. "Stay close to his workers, my daughter," she told Ruth. "Glean in his fields all through the harvest, where you will be safe." And so Ruth did. through the barley harvest, and then the wheat harvest that followed. She gleaned in the fields of Boaz. And she came home each evening to Naomi. And little by little, the two women's lives began to steady. Hope is a quiet thing. It rarely arrives like a sunrise you can see all at once. More often, it comes like the first faint gray before the dawn, when you are not quite sure whether the light is truly returning. Naomi was not yet sure, but she was beginning to hope again. And hope, even the smallest amount, changes how we hold the morning. The harvest went on. The two women were no longer quite so empty, and Naomi, in the quiet of the evenings, began to wonder whether she might yet do something for the daughter who had given up everything for her. Rest now. The story is turning gently toward its dawn. As the harvest drew toward its close, Naomi spoke to Ruth one quiet evening. "My daughter," she said gently, "should I not seek a home for you, a place of rest where you will be cared for? Boaz has been so kind to us, and he is family of a kind. Tonight he is winnowing barley at the threshing floor." In the custom of that time and place, there was a way for a close relative to step in and redeem what a family had lost, to restore land, to care for a widow, to make whole again what grief had broken. He was called a kinsman redeemer, one who buys back, one who comes close and does not leave. Naomi believed Boaz might be that one, and so she told Ruth gently what to do. "Wash and put on your cloak and go down to the threshing floor tonight. When Boaz has eaten and rested, go quietly to where he lies, and he will tell you what to do." It was a moment of great trust. Ruth, the foreigner, setting aside what she did not fully understand and trusting the wisdom of the woman she loved. "I will do everything you say," she answered. And so, in the cool of the evening, Ruth went down to the threshing floor. The harvest grain lay in heaps. Stars had come out overhead. Boaz had eaten, and his heart was glad, and he lay down at the edge of the grain to rest. And Ruth came, softly, softly, and rested at his feet. And she waited. We do not need to fill this moment with anything other than stillness. It was, in truth, a very quiet scene. A sleeping field beneath a wide sky. A faithful woman asking, in the way of her people, for a place of belonging. Rest now. The night is gentle here, and everything is about to turn toward home. In the middle of the night, Boaz stirred and was surprised to find someone resting near him. "Who are you?" he asked softly into the dark. And she answered, "I am Ruth. You are a redeemer of our family. Spread your cloak over me." It was an old and tender way of asking for shelter, for belonging, for a home. And Boaz, far from being troubled, was moved. His voice was warm when he answered. "May the Lord bless you, my daughter," he said. "You have shown even greater faithfulness now than before, for you have not turned away from our family, but have come toward belonging. Do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you have asked, for everyone in this town knows that you are a woman of great character." There was one matter to settle first. A relative who stood nearer in line than Boaz, who had the first right to act as redeemer. And Boaz, being a man of integrity, would not take what was not yet rightly his. And so in the morning, at the town gate, where such matters were settled openly, Boaz spoke with that nearer relative. And when that man chose, for his own reasons, to step aside, the way was made clear. We will not linger on the details of ancient law. What matters is this: Boaz did everything rightly, everything openly, everything with great honor, and the way was made clear. And so Boaz took Ruth to be his wife. the foreign widow who had gleaned in the corners of other people's fields, who had asked for nothing, who had only loved and stayed and worked, was given a home, a husband who honored her, a place to belong in the town of bread. What had been lost was beginning to be made whole, quietly, gently, the way true restoration almost always comes. Rest now. We are nearly at the gentle end of the story. In time, Ruth and Boaz had a child, a son. And when that baby was born, the women of Bethlehem, the very ones who had watched Naomi return empty, gathered around her again. But this time, they came with joy. "Blessed be the Lord," they said to her warmly, "who has not left you without family. May this child restore your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you, who has been more to you than 7 sons, has given him life." More to you than 7 sons. That is what they said of Ruth, the foreigner, the one Naomi once feared she had lost along with everything else. And Naomi, who had asked to be called Mara, who had said she came home empty, took the baby in her arms and held him. And the women said, "A son has been born to Naomi." The empty arms were full again. The story does not undo the losses. Naomi's husband is still gone. Her sons are still gone. Grief is not erased by what comes after. But around the grief, new life had quietly grown, the way green things return to a hillside after a long, hard winter. Not because the winter was not real, but because the roots held on. The child was named Obed, and Obed would one day have a son named Jesse, and Jesse would have a son named David, who would become the great king of Israel. So the woman who walked home calling herself empty became, in the end, the grandmother of kings, though she never knew it. She only knew that her arms were full, and the house was warm, and that was enough. Let that be enough for you, right? So investigate a bigness week, the woman who was done in an almost part of, and that was not the most. That woman who was left in an hours and stuff, and that was enough. Let that be enough for you, right? That the woman who's still considerably ever with him and work. So the woman who's ready down in our prophet characters and son, because the women who's great kings. Let that be enough for you, right? Let that be enough where they be enough. Let she was never figure out for this week. She only knew that her arms were full, and that was enough. She only knew that her arms were full, and that was enough. Let that be enough were the truthly. But child was worked beginning the best kings, and just have enough to get more enough. Let that be enough, the child was work. She was never figure out for this week. Let that be enough where they be enough. She has another walked home to they given the pains without ready. She has done and least better than the pain. She was never tick that. Let that be enough were the truthly. But the woman who still consider than more. The child was work beginning the best kings, has gotten to a profit and a distributed for instead. She comes the still implements for way. She has never be the more, and she looked the achieve for one way. She was working for them, but the woman who's truthly. She was never do that. She has not man has ready to tretch that. She had still lands to employ the truthly. The what that be enough for tonight, too. You do not have to see the whole story. Only the next breath, the next quiet moment, the warmth of the bed beneath you. Rest now. We are almost at the end. So that is the story of Ruth, a young woman who lost her husband, far from home. who could have walked away from a grieving widow and chose instead to stay, who gleaned in the corners of a stranger's field and was met, in the end, with kindness she had not thought to ask for, with a home, with belonging, with the fullness she had quietly given away to another. And before you drift the rest of the way into sleep, let one quiet thought stay with you. When Naomi sat in that empty house in Moab, she believed she had lost everything. She could not see that right beside her, quietly, faithfully, was the very person through whom everything would slowly be restored. Perhaps, in the hardest seasons of our own lives, we cannot see it either. Perhaps what feels like the end is only the part of the story just before the turning. You do not have to know how your own lives so far, within the perfect part of the story, you do not have to know how your own lives so far the tension into the out. Not tonight. Tonight there is nothing to solve, nothing to carry, nothing to fear. Like Ruth, you only have to take the next gentle step. And like Naomi, you are allowed to be carried when you are too tired to walk alone. You are not as alone as the night sometimes makes you feel. Let your breath grow slow now. Let the bed hold all your weight. Let the day and the year and the long road behind you simply rest. The fields are golden. The harvest is gathered. The house of bread is full again. And you are safe, right here, right now. Sleep well. You are not walking alone. Good night from Calm Night.